help us break down lease versus solar loan.
Yeah.
Both from a sales rep and also for homeowners. What should they know about that?
Sometimes us as sales reps or as organizations, sometimes we blame installers for things that happen. But I think almost just as often, dealers or companies that aren't actually fulfilling it, they got to look at themselves and take some ownership too.
I'm curious about this because I've heard a number of people say this now, that you have to have batteries now.
Yeah.
You have to have batteries now. Is it not still an option to just do like a smaller, let's say 40% offset system? I tell my team this all the time. It's like I don't ever buy the objection, I can't afford solar.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, if you can afford to just stick with the power company, then you can afford solar.
Okay.
I mean, unless you have terrible credit and you can't get the financing, I get it. Okay, in that case, don't worry about the solar. But if you're qualified to finance solar, then you can afford it. Now, if you don't want it, that's fine. Just tell me you don't want it. You don't trust me, you don't like it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But don't tell me you can't afford it. I'm afraid I'm not going to buy that, because you're paying your electric bill, so you can afford to throw that cash away. I'm just, maybe offering it in a slightly different way, where you build some equity over time and eventually you pay it off and you have free power.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and it's like you look at everything else people buy. Like you see the nice cars parked outside, you see something. People say they can't afford it, but I mean, people take out loans for cars. People do a lot of stuff. So something that Grant Cardone talks about is like you look for evidence that people buy stuff, that people go out and spend money, and most of the time you can look for things that probably everyone has stuff that wasn't near as smart as solar that they financed, that they bought.
Yeah,
so it's like come on.
You're right.
You can get solar.
You're right. Now listen, I know we're not here to sell ourselves on solar, but it is. Sometimes you got to just laugh about it. People buy stuff that they can't afford all the time because they want it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there wouldn't be auto loans. There wouldn't be loans on your television or your furniture.
Yeah.
So people buy what they want. That's the reality. People buy what they want. If you want it, there's a way to do it. And for solar, there's a way to do it where it does pay for itself.
Yeah.
But listen, before we get totally off track here, Taylor. So one of the things I'd like to learn more about. You mentioned earlier that because the interest rates are higher now on financing, that now the solar leasing option is kind of coming back into fashion, if you will.
Yeah.
I've never done a solar lease myself.
Yeah.
I think I understand the basics of how it works, but can you explain a little bit, maybe for those that are younger in the industry or they're seeing these options for the first time, help us break down lease versus solar loan.
Yeah.
Both from a sales rep and also for homeowners. What should they know about that?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, just, pretty standards like leasing, you're just paying like a fee for the solar panel. You don't own it. You don't get the tax credit with it, but you pay, just kind of your monthly rental fee on it. In California, they're called power purchase agreements, similar where you're just buying the energy at a cheaper rate. Which is great. And I know a lot of markets are starting to get these different options. Texas, I have a friend out there who he's starting to do a lot of these power purchase agreements out there. And it's good because California, a lot of people pay a lot in taxes. We all know California taxes a lot, so stay out of California. They got high taxes. Everyone will say that, but it's like I think it's a great option for people who don't have the tax liability, who maybe aren't going to get the tax credit from it. And right now, the reason we're talking a little bit before this, I think it's making a comeback in California just because now we have to have these batteries, and then now the rates are high, as we were just talking about. So for some people, it's like, okay, you don't have to have a loan attached, you don't have to finance anything. And I don't know about you, Joe, but some people you mentioned the word loan, and it doesn't matter what the terms are, you say the word loan, and they're like, oh, no. I listen to Dave Ramsey. He says never finance anything, never get a loan, and they just don't want to do it, right? So I think there are some people where, we know ownership is a great option, but in my opinion, I would much rather have someone lease solar or get on a power purchase agreement, even though maybe it's not the best option in my opinion. Maybe a loan is, but at the end of the day, it's that person's decision, right? If you present the options and they're like, oh no, I don't finance anything, I don't want a loan. Okay, well, let's do one of these leases. That's still going to be a much better situation than staying with your utility. And they do still have buyout options. As far as I know, every lease, every PPA has an option after, typically 5 years, where you can buy out the contracts. You can pre-purchase the lease, or have that ownership option. So even in California, some people, the argument is it makes it tougher to sell a home, but out there it's becoming, just kind of a standard thing. A lot of homes have it now. Realtors typically know how to work with it a lot better, and so I think it's for sure making a comeback, just because now we have to add on a finance system with a loan. These batteries, they're expensive, right? It's adding another 15, depending on how many batteries, depending on what you have with it. It can add anywhere from like 10, 20, 30 grand to a system. Mm-hmm. And some people, they're going to see 30,000 extra on top of their panels and be like, okay, I just want to wait. So it's like, okay, Mr. Homeowner, how about instead of taking out this loan for an extra 30,000 now, how about we just do this option? You don't have to see this high loan price, and you can buy it out later down the road if you want. So that's why I think it's making a comeback in California and just giving us another option, another way of doing it. And a lot of people, it's kind of less scary than having to try to convince someone to take out a loan for 80, 90, 100,000, depending on the batteries and everything. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about this because I've heard a number of people say this now, that you have to have batteries now.
Yeah.
You have to have batteries now. Is it not still an option to just do like a smaller, let's say 40% offset system, and not worry about the net metering loss? We'll just do like a 40 or 50% offset and focus on self-consumption without the battery, self-consumption during daylight hours, as opposed to having to do the battery?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not going to say I'm the expert on this. I'm literally learning this day by day, because so many changes in California. So if we were doing this 3-4 months down the road, I'm sure I'd have more information too. But yeah, from my understanding, you can still sell a smaller offset, and especially if people are heavy daytime users, then that may be a good option for them, is where you can just get smaller offset and just coach them up, look at their energy usage, because in California we can go on their energy consumption portal online, see when they're using their power. So if someone's not using as much during nighttime hours, then that may be a great option for them too. So yeah, I think it's important to understand these things. And like I said, I'm still trying to learn day by day, but when people listen to your channel, I'm going to have more content coming out on it, interviewing experts on it, because by no means I'm not an expert yet on this stuff. But yeah, from my understanding, that still is for sure an option. So.
Cool. Well, you make a good point too. A lot of people look at us like, oh, we're the experts because we're out here talking about it. It's like we're learning as we're going along here. I've learned a lot just being at the conference here, and that's why, and it's always changing, and that's why I think it's so important to continue to be out there and be learning about this.
Yeah.
Now, what advice for somebody who's just starting out? Obviously this is kind of a tougher environment than we've had in the past, but for somebody who's just starting out, maybe on the doors or maybe in a sales capacity of some sort, and this is the environment that they're starting their career in, what advice would you give to somebody like that now?
That's a great question. Yeah, I've been talking with people at this event. I've had a few people ask me that. And yeah, I think it's just get with a solid mentor, get with guys like Joe, guys like myself, guys that have been in this business that know the changes coming, especially now as markets change. I think it's important to get with a solid organization that can coach you through what you need to do, what changes are, because in California, we've got people losing their heads. A lot of people had these small dealerships in California that they don't know what they're doing, so they're either leaving the market or they're going to bigger organizations where they have stuff figured out. So for someone starting, I'd definitely say find a solid mentor. I think that's way more important than the actual company you're with. I think it's more important to get with the people that can coach you, that have a good culture, good environments, are high producers. If it's important you, if you're a sales rep trying to get an organization, how many sales is this organization doing? What's their per rep average? What type of culture you want to be. If you're a 60-year-old guy getting in the industry, maybe you don't necessarily want to go with some of these companies where it's everyone's 19, 20, 21 years old. Maybe that's not your fit, right? So I think that's something to look at. What's the culture? It's maybe go to some meetings, meet with the ownership, and just find a solid mentor, and also be careful. look at the actual installer, because unfortunately, I know we talked about this too, there's install companies go out of business since. You see some reps who had bad situations where they didn't have good install partners, and there's pay issues, there's fulfillment issues. So I think that's important too. Find good leader, solid organization, but also take a look at the back end, like how's their actual service. They have a solid operations team? Because you don't want to be that person 6 months from now saying that the company didn't fulfill on the installs. You got angry customers. Unfortunately, the first company I sold for, they had written in their contracts that they were going to clean the panels every single year for the next 25 years. And this was back in 2016. Now that company is no longer around. And so I get calls on a monthly basis where all these customers I sold through that install company, they're like, hey, Taylor, I haven't heard from the company. When are they coming to clean my panels? And I have to explain to them, I'm like, hey, look, I'm sorry, but they're not around anymore. And so it's like...
It's tough. It happens all the time.
And you can't know 100%, but I think it is important to look at that side of things. And like, what's their plan for growth? Are they going to be around in the long haul? Because it's time is money, and I spend time on a weekly or monthly basis still talking to customers that are upset because the install company's not there, and it's not necessarily a fun time having to explain to them, and they're mad at me. Sometimes they don't understand. They blame us, but
no, I know, and I understand too. From a homeowner perspective, it might be a little bit challenging to understand. Well, what do you mean, like your install company? Like you're the company, aren't you? Like I hired you, I signed up with you.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is, a lot of us are operating in this dealer EPC model where you have the dealer, like you or me, like somebody who would sign up a homeowner, and then you have the contractor, which is a separate company that's going to come in and do all the construction work and actually service the warranty.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if that company goes out of business, there's nobody left to service the warranty. Like I don't have any trucks anymore. I don't have any technicians to go send out and repair.
Yeah.
And I live in South Carolina, right? I might have a client in San Diego, for example. I don't have anybody to send to fix anything. So it's that whole partnership between the dealer and the EPC who's actually doing the physical work. The EPC is doing all the physical work.
Yeah.
And this is why I think it's so important. And I got a lot of that from the first day here at the conference. Is that if you're a sales organization, you're a sales professional, you want your EPC partner to be healthy and to be well run. You cannot be so short-term focused on just like what's my commission or what's my red line, or like just be so short-term focused.
Yeah.
If you're beating your installer down on the red line so low that the installer's not making any profit on your projects, what's the incentive for the installer to be in business?
Yeah.
If there's no profit, what's the incentive for the installer to be in business?
Okay.
So, I think you got to be more long-term thinking and setting up an arrangement where whatever is good for you is good for them too. If the project's a winner for you, it's a winner for your installer too.
Yeah.
So you can both be successful long-term. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And something I was mentioning a little bit too before we started this is sometimes us as sales reps or as organizations, sometimes we blame installers for things that happen. But I think almost just as often, dealers or companies that aren't actually fulfilling it, they got to look at themselves and take some ownership too and be like, hey, what am I doing to help them with these projects? Do we have communication set up, or am I just dumping these deals and just expecting them to fulfill, not communicating with them? I actually did a podcast with Doug Robinson. He's CEO of Legacy Power, which is a massive company. And he talked to that, just how some of these people, they go in and they say, hey, we're going to do some deals through you. And that's pretty much the extent of their conversation. Then they just start sending them customers. And then all of a sudden they hire like a summer sales team, for example. They bring in 30 reps for the summer, and then all of a sudden they go from selling, say, 10 accounts a week, and all of a sudden they do like 40 accounts. They send it to the installation partner. And then they're mad when their jobs aren't getting fulfilled quickly. All of a sudden the timelines get bumped out. But it's like, did you tell your EPCs that you're going to bring on these teams? Did you tell them how much volume you're going to be doing? Maybe these people, they only had 2 crews, and you expect them to be able to handle like 30 extra jobs now for the week. So I think it goes both ways, right? Like, people got to look at like, hey, what can I do to actually help the EPCs, the install partners? And I think we need to collaborate with each other, because just as much I think sales organizations are at fault, and we got to have collaboration, we got to have communication. And I think that's what's cool coming to events like SolarCon too, is you can kind of see who's behind the hoods. You can actually meet with the ownership, and that's important too, meeting with who you're going to do business with and getting similar focus, similar goals. So that's something.
Yeah. Well,